and a remarkable journey of becoming a CHRO in 10-12 years of time.
I think there's a lot of hard work.
Correct.
There's a lot of hard work that needs to be done. There's no
Correct.
shortcut to achieving success. See, in the whole process, you would come across a lot of people who are also pulling you down. So
Correct.
how are you navigating? But I think that education, when I really went through that, it's a very different world when you are executing and implementing that knowledge that you are going through in a formal setup. Of course, that is important. But my reflection of that is, I think what you see in the real world is very different than what you really go through and what you read.
Hello friends, so welcome to another episode of HR to CHRO, and today we have Mr. Sahil with us. Mr. Sahil has had leadership positions in CHRO India Mart and is now CHRO of RateGain, and a remarkable journey of becoming a CHRO in 10-12 years of time. So welcome Sahil. Thanks for giving us time.
Thank you so much, Amit. Thanks for having me here. Thank you.
Alright, so can we start with your background? Why did you decide to join HR, Sahil? Why HR?
So HR was not a choice. It happened to me by chance. I'm an economics graduate.
Okay.
When I was pursuing my graduation, I studied actuarials, as one of the subjects in economics.
Insurance.
Yes, risk and insurance, etc.
Right.
So my goal was to, and I grew up sort of studying a lot about economics. I topped my 12th boards, in economics, across the city.
Very nice.
And my goal was to really be an economist. So I grew up studying about, what really happened in the macroeconomic, sphere, and that's what I wanted to really do.
So I think sorry to so this would have helped you in your journey as a CHRO, because
Absolutely.
as a CHRO you have that number savviness.
Absolutely. And demand and supply, demand and supply of talent, that's what you really look at. So that's what I wanted to really be. But 2009 is when I graduated, and that's where we had like a recession that was going on, and the depression that was going on in the economy.
Crisis.
Correct. So I ended up, like any college graduate, who's just wanting to probably earn pocket money. I ended up joining a BPO, and I think I happened to be at the right place at the right time at that time. And very quickly into my journey there, in about 6 months of time, I moved into training.
Okay.
Right. Yet doing, late night shifts, etc. But then I moved into training, and that sort of, excited me a lot.
I'm sure that would have, because of your hard work only, because within 6 months as a new joinee, and you recruit, you're going onto training.
Correct.
So you would have impressed people.
I would say yes, but then it's also about, being at the right place at the right time. Okay. Because the process that I joined in that BPO was a pilot process. So they were just starting that process.
Okay.
So they also needed people, who were exhibiting hustle, who were exhibiting, hunger to succeed. And I think those were the kind of people that they wanted to promote into, various functions, training, quality, etc. And I think I was very passionate about, how I think a trainer in a BPO commanded certain respect. Okay. People looked up to them, very differently. And that was my, passion, that I wanted to be in the training room and then just sort of have these 20, 25 people, training them about the process. Really, preparing them to be productive and adding value to the business in about a month's time. So that was my goal. So I moved into that, and I started loving that training so much. From training, I moved into learning and development, and then from learning and development to capacity building in the company, then strategic HR. That's how the journey has been. So it was by chance and not by choice, but then I enjoyed it so much, that I never thought of moving out of it. So it was really a change in the mindset, from being an economist to being now an HR professional. So that is how my journey was.
Very nice. And it has been a very successful journey. So my next question obviously is, what is the secret of your success, Sahil? So in 10-12 years, becoming a CHRO, what is the secret?
Yeah. So certain things are secret, certain things are not secret. But let me tell you, a factual story. This is, I think, in the year 2010, 2009 is when I joined this, BPO, and I was absolutely mesmerized, a fresh graduate getting out of college. I was absolutely mesmerized by, the training heads in that company, the HR heads in that company. I remember my first performance appraisal that was happening, and if you know how BPOs work, late night you would just probably go out, you're smoking with your friends, you are sipping on chai, and you're enjoying Maggie. So my first appraisal discussion that happened over all of this on a January winter night. Okay. with my training manager. So I was a trainer at that time, and then she was a training manager. So she's the one, who was having my appraisal discussion. She asked me a very interesting question: is that how do you see yourself here? That's a very typical, appraisal question that anybody would have asked, 10, 11 years ago. Today, the whole performance appraisal discussion landscape has changed. But she asked me this question, and I said, I'm not going to tell you what I want to be here. I would want to tell you what do I want to be in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Okay. So I this was my response to her, that I want to be heading the
And
HR.
this was all unplanned.
This was all unplanned, right? I told her that, I want to be the HR head of a company by the time I am 30. I was 19 or 20 at that time. And she laughed it out, right? Because of course, if you look back, 10 years ago, who would have imagined like a 30 years old somebody, becoming an HR head of a company? So she laughed it out, and I think from a genuine space of care and a genuine space of showing me the path to what reality would look like, she said, are you sure what you're aspiring for? Because these are very big dreams. And I told her, yes, this is what my aspirations are, and this is what I want to accomplish, and this is what I want to do. So my success, started with dreaming very, very big. It was a big, hairy, audacious goal that I had for myself, and I think that's the key for anybody to be successful.
Very nice.
So I had this big, hairy, audacious goal, is what I call, which everybody believed, probably was not possible. So that was number one thing. The second thing, I think it's very important that while you are on this journey, to really have somebody that you would call your mentor.
Okay.
Right? And a genuine mentor. What I mean by a genuine mentor is you don't really need to like this person while you are being mentored by this person. Now that mentorship could be, your direct manager or somebody outside of the, of the company that you're working with. I happen to have, Amit, a very good mentor in my previous company, who really, my first interaction with her when she joined, she told me that, for the next 2 years, you're going to be extremely uncomfortable. But if you really want me to be mentoring you, you should be ready for that. And I'm going to be pushing you a lot. Right. And I think she did a great job of doing all of that. She pushed me a lot. I mean, like some of the projects, we would probably discuss at 7 p.m. in the evening. And the next morning, she wants to see the whole plan of how would that plan get executed, what would we do, etc. So having the right mentor, and that right mentor would not necessarily be somebody who's saying what you want to hear, who's telling you to do what you want to do. Is also going to be a person who's going to push you and push you a lot, push you beyond your boundaries, push you beyond what is possible to achieve. I think that's that's one thing that really worked out well for me. So, and not just her, I think a couple of other people, in fact, in my current company also at RateGain, I've had an opportunity to get coached and mentored, by some really great leaders, including, my CEO himself. Right. And again, like I'm saying, it is not about you sitting somebody down and then spending half an hour coaching them and mentoring them. There is a lot of other ways to mentor people, coach people, but it's extremely important. If you have this big, hairy, audacious goal, you need to find somebody who can mentor you, and find the right mentor who may not necessarily be the ideal mentor that you want to have, because you are going to thank that person 2 years from the time they actually mentored you, right? The third thing is, which is not a secret, Amit, I think there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work that needs to be done. There's no shortcut to achieving success. I mean, I remember having worked for 18 hours at a stretch for months, in my first company at India Mart also, when I was there, and I think at RateGain also. So there's no shortcut to success. That's what I would say. The last thing that I would say is, definitely it's again about, being at the right place at the right time. A lot of people, may be doing hard work. A lot of people may have, great mentors, and a lot of people definitely aspire for achieving big things in life. Right? It's also about, are you at the right place at the right time or not? So stars play a very critical role, in all of this. So
okay, but there would be so many others who would have joined along with you in the BPO industry, or who
Yeah.
were at the right place at the right time. But all the other three things that you are mentioning would have also played a part.
Absolutely.
So see, this reminds me of that scene from the movie Trishul. I'm a very big Amitabh
Yeah.
Bachchan and movie fan, where Amitabh Bachchan, he goes and he says that I'll clear that land which has been grabbed by some gundas. He goes to Sanjeev Kumar, and then he actually does that. He fights and scares them off, whatever. So then when he goes and meets Sanjeev Kumar and tells him that now you promised to I'll buy this land for 5 lakh, whatever. So then he leaves, and Sanjeev Kumar is talking to Shashi Kapoor. And Shashi Kapoor is appreciating Amitabh Bachchan that, he did such remarkable things. So Sanjeev Kumar says that remarkable is not that he was able to do it. Remarkable is he knew he can do it before he came to when he came to meet me. So
Correct.
this belief that you had,
Yeah.
not only having that audacious goal,
Yeah.
but also having the self belief that you'll be able to do it is
Yeah.
something very remarkable.
Yeah.
Sahil.
Yeah. Thank you. And see, in the whole process, you would come across a lot of people who are also pulling you down. So how
Correct.
are you navigating through that is extremely important.
Correct.
Some you would have to navigate through your influence. Some of them, would probably look at the outcomes that you're producing and then get influenced. Some of them would genuinely, just pull you down. So it is all
Okay.
about, navigating through different sorts of people, right? I was pretty young, when I started off as, as the HR head in the company. In fact, in my previous company also, I was probably one of the youngest, person who was a part of the, of the learning and development team. So you need to find people who are going to lift you up and
Okay.
not people who would pull you down.
Okay. And how to build that self belief? How can youngsters who are watching this podcast, what would be your advice to general people at large, not only in
Yeah.
HR, young people who are about to start their career or who are starting their career, how to have this self belief, how to build it up?
I think surround yourself with people who have seen that growth,
Okay.
and it's self belief would first of all start with you having a big goal,
Correct.
right? And then there are people who would enable that goal with you. So I think surrounding yourself with people
Hmm.
who would lift you up and
Very
not
nice.
people who will pull you down. You got to filter that, that for yourself. So I think that is what is going to be my mantra of how could
Very
you,
nice.
look at
Very
the
nice.
fast.
So some interesting. So this has been a remarkable journey, like working for 18 hours a day at a stretch.
Yeah.
This. I mean, it's not easy. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds so simple and easy.
Yeah.
So what were the other? How did you manage your mindset? So it's first of all that you have to day in day out, and it's repetitive things that you do. So how did you motivate yourself? Where was the motivation coming from?
I think the motivation again, was coming from what I wanted to achieve,
From that big goal that you
from that
had.
big goal, that I wanted to achieve. And like I said, nothing. It is a lot of hard work, that you have to do. And I knew that nothing is going to be served to me, on a platter. I will
Okay.
have to work towards that, and you'll have to continue to work towards that, right? It is not that you become a CHRO and then you're settled.
Correct.
I think as a person, I like to challenge myself. I like to challenge my team, and then I don't know if it's a great thing or not, but my mind never stops.
Very nice.
My mind never stops, and I'm constantly thinking about what is that we need to improve. What is that we need to sort of look at innovating. What is that the others are doing that we can probably benefit from, and what is that we need to do and be called as the first timers.
Okay.
So my mind would never stop. So I go out running a lot, and that's when that's the time with myself where I'm thinking. So my team knows when I'm out for a run, and if they are getting messages from me about what we need to do, they know that I'm out running.
So this is another secret. So running is your meditation, I
It
guess.
is my meditation. Running and definitely cooking de-stresses me a lot.
Very nice.
Cooking
Very nice.
de-stresses
So
me a
how
lot.
much do you run? So it's marathons, half marathons, or
I am not a marathon person, but then on a good day I would be out running about 5 to 6 kilometers.
okay.
On the weekends I would probably end up doing about 10, 12 is what I
Very
do.
nice. So 10, 12 is very good. So before pandemic, I used to run half marathon.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
But then after pandemic, so now it's 5, 10 kilometers,
Yeah.
5, 6 kilometers
Yeah.
maximum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So this is another good advice that people should have some hobby or some
Absolutely.
outlet. So
Absolutely.
cooking or running.
Yeah. Cooking de-stresses me a lot. Even after like a long day at work, if I go and if I will just start preparing a meal, it just de-stresses me a lot.
Very nice.
With some nice music in the background, you're cooking yourself, I think that de-stresses me a lot.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So this is from Godfather. So
Yeah.
to distress themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, some challenges, some key challenges that you would have faced through this journey,
Sure.
Sahil.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge was to set the right team.
Okay.
And we were when I joined the company, we were about a $15 million organization, about a 350 people across the globe. So the first challenge definitely was how are we setting up the HR as a function for scale.
Okay. How many people were there that time?
I think employee wise we were about a 350 people,
and now it's 4 times, 5 times that.
As on date we are about 900 people. That is
Okay.
what we are right now.
Okay.
But there's a huge expansion that happened in the US, in Europe. There's a huge expansion that happened at the corporate office also. So I think the number one challenge for me was to really set the team, set the processes, set the technology up for scale.
Okay.
And the journey from a 15 million now to a 130 $35 million,
10
that
times.
required a lot of right team in the place, right processes in place,
Obviously.
and right technology in place. So That was the biggest challenge. And of course, I was learning on the go,
Correct.
right? Because I'd not had that experience in the past, so I was learning on the go. Of course, speaking with a lot of people in terms of what can work well for us. That was the number one challenge. So
Okay. On a personal front, so when you were so how did you, so not being from HR background, so you would have, it would have been a steep climb to the learning curve would have been huge. So how did you manage all that?
so two things happened, Amit. When I was with India Mart, we had a CHRO who had joined, and my first interaction with her when she joined was, of course, she was also meeting some of the key people in the HR team. And I think my first interaction with her, she was trying to build her core team. And I think when we had a discussion, probably she was the one who identified
That fire in you.
and some skills that she needed in order to transform the HR, there.
Okay.
And that required me to work on multiple things at a time,
And
that
stretch yourself.
and stretch myself. And she was the one who told me that, you are going to thank me after 2 years, right? And I really thank her, for bringing that, or actually finding that fire, and ensure that that fire continues.
Okay.
So that really helped me. Those 2 years that I worked with her, I think really helped me understand HR from a strategy perspective, but implement those strategies, because she was the one who was defining those strategies, and I was mostly the executor, and somebody who was implementing that. So that really helped me. And after that is when I really went for my formal education in HR, when I took a break, and I went to IIM Calcutta and did my formal education in HR. But I think that education, when I really went through that, it's a very different world when you are executing and implementing those that knowledge that you are going through in a formal setup. Of course, that is important, but my reflection of that is, I think what you see in the real world is very different than what you really go through and what you read in the books.
Okay.
So that really helped me, because I had an experience of really seeing the real world, and then getting a formal education really helped me in terms of
you put it in perspective.
Exactly. So that really helped me.
Okay. So one important corporate lesson here is that never shy away from opportunities, because
Yeah.
every challenge is an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And you kept on grabbing those opportunities,
Absolutely.
those challenges, which helped you grow faster.
Absolutely.
Had you shied away, then maybe the journey wouldn't have been so fast.
Yeah. So with me, it used to happen is, she would tell me, can you please not offer to take this project? Let me give it to somebody, because you already have a lot of stuff going on. And I would tell her, no, I want to do this. Because see, and Amit, I think it also comes from this space where each one of us in our career journeys will be at different stages in our life.
Correct.
Right? At that point in time, maybe I was hungry to learn more. Maybe I was hungry to pick up more. Maybe I was hungry to really implement and learn a lot of things in HR. But then I do understand, people in their career would go through different stages, would have different aspirations, would have different needs, and would have different liabilities, if I can be, if I can talk about that, right? I mean, like, for somebody, compensation would be very important. For somebody, learning opportunities would be very important. I think for me, at that point in time, grabbing as much as I could, from that 2 years window while I worked with her, bringing that knowledge, taking that knowledge, implementing that knowledge was very important for me.
I think the challenge sometimes is that people, for whatever reason, find it difficult to get out of the comfort zone and not taking up additional responsibilities. And that is, like you are mentioning, is one of the biggest reasons why you have been able to grow so fast.
Yeah. That's the key. I mean, that is the key. See, if you do the usual things, a usual thing will come to you.
Correct.
Right? I mean, like, it is, and again, with utmost respect to everybody, I think with 25 years of experience, 80% of the people can become CHROs.
Very nice.
Yeah. With 25 years of experience, you can easily become, a CHRO of a company. I think the big, hairy, audacious goal that I talked about, I think that is where you would probably, and I would encourage a lot of these young people who are probably pursuing their education or are very young in their career, to really big dream big, and then also really think about how can they be the CHRO, of a company with 8 years of experience, 10 years of experience, 12 years of experience. And there are companies today, that are looking for that hunger, that are looking for that kind of talent, right? It's come to think of it, today in the AI world, if I key in, and if my prompt on ChatGPT is give me a strategy to do this, I will find out that strategy on ChatGPT.
Very
And
nice.
better than, and some of those strategies would have taken us 2 months of time, when I used to prepare those strategy
Correct.
decks.
Correct.
Today it is available in 2 minutes of time. The key is going to be the execution. The key is going to be contextualization. The key is going to be how fast can you run implementing that strategy.
I understand.
Right. So if you have to design a talent management framework for your company, today it is available through ChatGPT in 2 minutes of time. It is all how well are you giving the prompts on ChatGPT.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
or any other AI tool, it's all available. What would differentiate you is how well can you execute it and how fast can you execute that, and how
Correct.
contextualized you can be while you're implementing and executing that.
Correct. And also, see, as a CHRO is not, the role is not only limited to HR functions. A CHRO is part of the has a seat at the table,
Yeah.
where the business strategy,
Yeah.
etc. Also, so how to identify those opportunities, how to improve learning, apart from HR, how to improve learning in other aspects of
Sure,
business.
absolutely. I think this again, comes from, do you want to be the traditional HR who's only looking at hiring people, running the performance appraisal process in the company, and just engagement process that you run in an organization? I think from the very beginning, I've had that keen interest in understanding the business and solving the business problems through HR. Right. And that would require a lot of sitting with the BU heads, understanding their pain areas, understanding the
Can you
P&L.
give an example, Sahil?
Yeah. So at RateGain, there is something that we call as innovation labs. Right now, as a result of that innovation labs, you would have we'll have new products that we are launching out to the market. Now, when you're launching a new product, there are different challenges that you would face. At times, it is about, like, it could be as simple as putting together the right team,
Okay.
to solve that challenge.
Okay.
It's a business challenge, right? In
Correct.
terms of how do you put that SWAT team together, who's the product management person that you want to put, to kick this product off? What is the kind of GTM people would you want to have? What kind of GTM strategy would you have? If the product is a product market fit also, you'll have to assess all of that. So that is one way. I think you need to be really staying close to the business to understand what are the challenges that the business is looking at solving, and whether it's about putting the right team, whether it is about nurturing that the right people, and about retaining the right people. All of this would only come into play when you understand the business and the business problems well.
Which can only happen if you're proactive and you're already spending time with the business people to
Absolutely.
understand their future challenges.
Absolutely.
1 month down the line, 1 week down the line, and plan for it in advance from
Correct.
an HR perspective.
Absolutely.
Very nice. So your business people would be loving a person like you in HR.
They don't dislike me, so I think everything is
Who
fine.
can anticipate their problems, their coming challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Any other challenge you would like to mention here, which comes to mind?
Yeah, I think a great challenge. So, like I talked about, 350 people that we had when I had taken over. We did not really have a lot of people, in the US and Europe at that time. So it was also, a growth that was happening internationally for us. So understanding the global nuances, because things work very differently, in the US, things would work very differently in Europe. So I think understanding that perspective, while you want to have a global mindset, but how do you sort of look at the local execution and the local excellence, right? So that's another challenge that we sort of faced in terms of how do we become more global, right? The company being headquartered here, it was important for us to really drive the core values, the cultural philosophy across the globe, especially when we were building those teams up. But you cannot ignore the local nuances, the local laws, the local culture, and the local demographics. So that is again was a big challenge that we faced while we were on the go.
So what would you like to advise young people who are starting their career in HR? What would be your biggest advice to them, Sahil?
Stay curious. I think that's that's number one thing that I would, and that's the only thing that I would, I would recommend to the young people who are starting their career. That would take care of, everything. Stay curious in terms of what is going on in, in a macro environment,
Okay.
what is going on within the HR space. I mean, like, whole AI is becoming a big thing right now, and if I look at, you will have to find AI as your co-pilot, as you are looking at growing in your career. And I think that's my suggestion. I mean, look at that as your partner, that is going to help you navigate through your career, and not really something, which is going to take away people's job. That's what I would recommend. And stay curious, of course. Just stay curious, at least for the first 5 to 6, 7 years of your career.
Very
Ask a
nice.
lot of why is it happening, and also, while you're staying curious, focus on, with the speed at which the world is moving right now, Amit, I think it is very important for the young generation to stay curious, and then also think, how would this be beneficial in the next 5 years for the companies, for them, and for the HR function.
Okay. Very nice. And staying curious for every new disruption or every new tool or technology which is coming up. Take
Absolutely.
it as a, like you said,
Correct.
take it as a partner. and
Correct.
Not be
But then
scared of
also think about, whether this is going to be relevant in the next, 4 to 5
years.
years or not.
Correct.
Right. So, but that's very important. But today the world is moving at a very fast speed.
Correct.
Very fast speed. And for you to pace up with that, it's extremely important.
Correct. What about people who are at the mid level, Sahil?
I think, like I said, execution is going to be the
Okay.
key.
Okay.
Execution is going to be the key. So becoming, absolutely focused on how well can you execute. One thing that I tell to my team, and I think if this is an opportunity to share it with a larger audience, is every time there is a project that we are working on, every time there is a program that we are running, one thing that I tell them is to really think about what is the worst that can happen, and where all can you fail. When you start thinking about it, from that perspective, I think your likelihood of succeeding in something that you're doing is just, a notch above. So so to the middle management people in HR, I would just say, stay focused on execution, and while you are staying focused on that, just look at where all can you fail. Yeah, where all can you fail is something, that you should definitely be focusing on. Can I give an advice for the senior people also? Yeah, because I'm sure that could be the, yeah. So I think for the senior folks, what I have seen work very well, not just for me, but then, I stay connected with a lot of people, a lot of successful HR people, HR heads, of other companies. And I think what has worked well for them is, one, putting together the right team in place, and also staying very close to the business and understanding the business very well, solving the business problem. Today the world is not expecting, as an HR, from an HR professional, to only solve the problem of bringing talent in the company. Right. Today the whole landscape has really changed, and the expectations from the HR heads and the expectations, from the CHROs have really evolved.
And maybe that's where the trend has also started, that now CHROs are moving on to the CEOs role.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look at the recent example of Lena Nair, who became the Chanel's CEO. And very interesting conversation that I was having with another HR person, over the weekend. Because when he gave me that example, I think he only knew about this specific individual, only about Lena Nair. But then if you really go down, there are a lot of such examples. Look at,
There is one lady who became the Indian.
yeah. Look at this company called Latent View. Their CHRO moved into, the CEO role. Right. So there are a lot of these people. See, if you look at the responsibility of a CEO, what it is, only to put together the right system, right process, and the right people in place. Those are the only three key responsibilities of, the CEO. Of course, strategizing, etc. Definitely, but it's all about the right people.
Yes, Sahil. So hard work. So you were, any example you would like to give?
Example, not really, an example per se, but so I'm in the process of hiring, somebody for my team who would lead a lot of programs, HR programs with me, and that would require a lot of hustle, a lot of, think of that person to be me. I was, about a few years back, to this CHRO, and it's very difficult to find that, that hustle, to that find that that fire. And I recently met somebody who wants to and who is aspiring to be the CHRO very early in their career. And I happened to meet that person. I explained the opportunity. I explained what would be expected, but I think that hustle was missing, and I think he recognized that hustle was missing, right? So, like I said, nothing comes without the hard work. It's absolutely important to have that.
Right. So thank you, Sahil. Thanks
you.
for giving us time. It has
Absolutely.
been a pleasure.
I mean, it has been an absolute pleasure, talking to you. And of course, to be able to share my journey, with so many people. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.